I talk to a whole range of folks in the industry. You know, I talk to the vendors that are selling to marketers. I talk to publishers that are trying to figure out what marketers want and also how to preserve their business, you know, and maintain a healthy business that's sustainable. And I talk to the marketers that are trying to figure all this stuff out. And I feel like the most kind of desperate cry right now is from marketers who understand that they're sitting on something really valuable, which is this data asset that they have or set of data assets that they have. But they can't quite figure out what they're supposed to do with it, you know? And it's interesting because in many ways, marketers are already really good with data, like in traditional channels. Mm-hmm. But in digital, they just haven't been all that good with it. And the sort of battle cry these days is, we need to do something with our data. What do we need to do to be able to harness the power of our own data?
So that's interesting. So, I mean, we're taking this back. We were just having a conversation with Tom from Ramp about metadata and the future of that, right? And contextually based targeting and relevance. And we're just talking about making sure you get together your own personal first-party data, clean, normalized, all that stuff. I mean, is that really where we are in the conversations you're having with a lot of the marketers?
Well, no, because that would I feel like that would mean that they were at the point that they even understood that they needed to do things like normalize data. I don't know that mostly the average marketer is really quite there yet. I think it's more this sort of feeling in their gut that they need to be more effective in the way that they speak to consumers, and they need to do it wherever consumers are. Because relevance is king, and if you're not relevant in the long term, I think that you're dead. And I think that they increasingly understand that. So they come to me and they say, we think we need a DMP. We think we need a data management platform. Can you help us pick one? And generally what I'll say back to them is, well, why? You know, what is it that you're trying to accomplish with this thing? And that creates, I think, a pause for a lot of them, because then they're forced to sort of go, oh wait, this is kind of a bigger question, this is a bigger conversation. I really have to think strategically about what I mean when I say I want to use my data more effectively, I want a DMP. That creates a whole set of conversations about who needs to be involved inside of your organization to help you realize this vision. What is the vision? What is it really that you're trying to do? Who's going to pay for the thing? How are you going to justify the cost? Are you thinking about privacy and consumer trust when you're thinking about the use of data? And then all of a sudden a year goes by. And then they think about data normalization.
Well, it's really, I mean, this is bigger than just advertising, right?
Yes.
Because when we talk about first-party data, this is customer retention, right?
Yes.
This is customer service, right? This is product registration, right? All of those things, and then, I mean, just in general, this is sort of a way of doing business. This is change management.
That is correct. I mean, at Forrester, if you typed in the phrase customer obsessed or consumer obsessed, you'd probably get 500 reports back. I mean, it is the theme at Forrester right now. Becoming a customer obsessed organization, becoming a customer obsessed marketer. Become customer obsessed or you die, really, truly. That's a very, very big deal, right? And so that message is resonating with marketers, but again, they don't quite know what to do about it. I think when you say become customer obsessed or you die, you start having the CMO go, geez, we probably need to figure this out, right? We need to figure out how to communicate with consumers. We need to figure out how to be relevant. But they're still very, I mean, to your point around change management, they're still very siloed in the way that they're set up. You know, you have the CRM guy that doesn't necessarily talk to the acquisition people. I mean, I can think of a live example of a very savvy financial services company where the guy said to me, oh, I don't talk to them. And I don't think that was by choice. I think it was just organizationally they weren't set up to talk to each other.
Well, it's interesting because I'm going back to the comment that the CIO is now the CMO's best friend.
Right.
This is a great example of it.
We do write about that.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I mean, a marketer is about really sexy print ads and making sure that the CEO sees the billboard on the way to the office, right? Yeah. I mean, this is, you know, we're talking about moving up the food chain where at some point we thought it ended, so.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think marketing is often treated as an expense too, rather than a revenue generator.
Yep.
So, you know, I think it's time to start turning those conversations around. I mean, I was at an Adobe conference, and Ann Lunis, who's the CMO of Adobe, was speaking, and I asked her a question about her role as a chief marketing officer. I said, are you becoming a chief marketing technology officer? And you could see her sort of, geez, I mean, am I? I mean, she thought about it. Her answer was no, but she said, but we are filling our halls with people that understand technology in the marketing department.
Well, I want to go back to the comment you made about, you know, actual sort of acquisition and being able now to look at investments in marketing, advertising, leveraging data to drive measurable things like top line and bottom line, right? That's scary for most marketers. This is why the average tenure is what, 42 months of a CMO now? Because the C-suite can't seem to talk to one another, and marketers are struggling to prove. I mean, you guys have written about this, you know, your former colleague Stutzman and I talked about this a lot. The biggest challenge of marketers is proving the value of marketing. Does data help them do that?
So it's interesting because if you're a marketer like a 1-800-Flowers, or an organization like a 1-800-Flowers, where you're living, frankly, kind of living and dying by the numbers, I had a really interesting conversation with Chris McCann, who is one of the founders of the company, president, I think. Either he or his brother are president. And Chris was talking about how every day he gets in a room and looks at the numbers with all of the folks that run the components of his marketing programs to see how all of them are behaving and performing. And then they figure out together what they're going to do. And I wonder, like, how do we bring some of that kind of thinking into marketing organizations as a whole, right? I mean, he treats marketing like a revenue generator for him because his business requires that he does that. But does a brand marketer at a CPG company think that way? I'm not sure.
Well, I think it's a paradigm shift, right? Because then you're talking about the concept of engagement being a feedback loop, right? And then this whole constant comms model, that modification and data becomes essential to that, right? I mean, I always like to make analogies to sort of just good old business, right? And it's kind of the idea of continuous improvement, right? There's a feedback loop, you have fail points in the process and you fix it. It seems like we're moving there in marketing, but is the mindset of marketers, you know, are sort of the legacy of this current tenure of CMOs that we have in place, are they capable of making this shift to actually be able to embrace data and change the way they do business and actually be wrong if the data tells them they're wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is yes. Again, because I think it's becoming increasingly a business imperative. If you look at how consumers are behaving, you know, they're on more devices than ever, they're more sophisticated than ever. I think that their requirements of brands are getting more stringent than ever. And so if you're not relevant, you're in trouble, which I have said 100 times, and I'll probably say 100 more times. And I think that that is starting to work its way into the DNA of companies when they think about how they communicate with consumers.
So I know we got a little bit off track, and I'll take responsibility for that. So sort of back to data. So let's talk about a marketer engaging a DMP.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and the agency, and who owns the data, right? Keeping ownership of first-party data. Like, that's scary. And what are the rules of the road, and how do you create safe space for a marketer to start to travel down that path?
Yes. I mean, I think that marketers' data, an organization's data, is its biggest strategic asset. Its relationship with its customers, which is hopefully driven by intelligent use of data, is a very big strategic asset. I don't want to see marketers give away that power or that control. So I'm fairly straightforward with them when they ask me, you know, what do I need to think about when I'm choosing a DMP? The first thing I'll say is make sure that you as an organization are equipped to have a relationship with that DMP. That you have people on the team that understand data, that you have the data owners participating in the organization, that you're not simply completely outsourcing to the DMP or to anyone else. Whether you allow partners to participate in those conversations, like the agency as a strategic partner, is up to you. And it's great if you decide that your agency is the kind of strategic partner that you want them to be at the table for that. But I get concerned when marketers say, oh, my agency's worrying about that for me. Giving away power like that, I think, is concerning.
So do you think there's an incongruency right now between kind of where media is heading as far as investing in data to make inventory and assets more valuable? There are still these marketers that are sort of playing catch up. Where do the world sit as far as coming together, and what's that middle ground of where we are as a point in time?
I think that if you polled the universe of interactive marketing executives like we periodically do at Forrester, you'd find out that about 10% of them would say that they're using a DMP, for example. That's like 1 in 10. And I'm not even sure that is the full kind of most robust use of a DMP, but simply could be audience analytics on a media buy, right? So that's a pretty small number. You know, if you poll interactive marketing executives about their use of advanced attribution, algorithmic approaches to advanced attribution, understanding how channels interplay with one another to lead to conversion, like 10% are using algorithmic attribution techniques. That's a pretty small number. So I feel like the excitement is there, the attention is being shown there increasingly, but we still have a long way to go. I guess the question will be how fast we get there now. You know, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, you know, the year of the DSP is 2009. I was kind of wrong, you know. I thought that 2011 would be the year of the DMP. I was kind of wrong. I mean, but now that energy really feels like it's there. I really do actually think that 2013 could be the year of the DMP.
So just one last question, because I think this is essential and it can't be avoided. It's about talent. If you are a CMO or you know, a brand manager, and you kind of have had the awakening that you've got to start thinking about data and get a hold of your data. Let's take the C-suite and just sort of stay within there. You don't have a CIO in your organization, et cetera. What's the first hire?
I think that there's a dearth of good analytics talent inside a lot of probably marketing organizations that understand digital data. This is not to say that CPG companies aren't fantastic at analytics and financial services isn't fantastic at analytics, but understanding analytics within the context of all the digital data that's available now, there's probably a pretty significant need for that. So maybe it's something like, well, I mean, VP of Analytics is kind of a boring answer.
Yeah, I mean, is there a new role? Like, I mean, the CIO.
Well, I mean, you know,
5 years ago, not everybody wouldn't talk about a CIO, and everybody knew what the I meant.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, some people like to say, oh, well, now we have a chief people officer. You know, where it's all about the consumer and being consumer oriented. I'm not sure that that's very analytical necessarily. You have people talking about chief marketing technology officers. That's an interesting question. Like, should you be both of those people, you know, inside one role? Does that compete with the CMO? What happens to the CIO? I don't think it's necessarily that clear. But the very simplistic answer is more analytics talent, people that understand digital data.
Got it.